At the edge of the universe, 400 men and women are probing the immeasurable blackness of space. Their leaders are an Earthman with no fear and a stranger with no heart. Travel beyond our time and solar system, into new galaxies, into worlds beyond your dreams. Star Trek, every week, in color.
All right. Is it us?
Okay, I think that that was all the intro we would ever need. As we can see, welcome to Serious Star Trek, everybody. Our engineering team is hard at work trying to make sure our RCS thrusters are working correctly. I'm over here just studying a few new technical manuals. Don't mind if I do. But how are you doing, Captain Fun?
I forgot until just we saw now that we were going to talk about Mandalorian, so I did not do any of the requisite homework.
Yeah, I forgot too.
I mean, I saw it initially. I just figured I'm so mad about Star Trek all the time. I might as well just,
that's fair.
I'm ready to riff. You see, Dave Porter's giving us the helpful thing. Dan is muted.
Yeah.
And Dan's going to be...
We are aware of this.
Yeah, we know, Dave.
Oh, hey, that worked.
No longer muted.
You're hearing me a little bit? Hearing me a little bit?
I just heard you say, hear me a little bit.
I still think that this is an extended, you guys are fucking with me kind of thing.
I wish I was that clever.
Yeah, we made that poor joke at one point, and now you can never trust us again. But so here, it's pretty elaborate then, right? Because Dave Porter in Canada is in on it, if it's just us messing with you.
Well, I mean, he would be, to be fair.
That's true. Good job, Dave.
Good job, Dave.
A little something extra for you at Christmas time.
Yeah. So, looks like Star Trek Picard is over. We've got a few weeks before we start talking about Strange New World and how much I hate it. What do you want to talk about today, Captain Fun?
Well, I can't let that go. You actually hate Strange New Worlds?
The more I think about Strange New Worlds, and I actually tried to rewatch a couple episodes recently, and it just didn't go well.
I'm more weighed down with those whimsical episodes than you were.
Like it. Yeah, I just I don't like
I'm not so sure I'm gonna really like having a new chief engineer every season until they finally give it to Scotty, like it's the drummer in Spinal Tap. I don't know how funny I think that is, but for one, Mimi's really excited about Carol Kane, so
that's great.
Maybe they'll pick people up. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think the chief science officer likes Strange New Worlds way more than I do. So maybe I can't look. I'm way too enamored with the TOS Star Trek. I just can't get over a lot of the little stuff that I should be able to get over as a reasonable, rational person. I should be able to get over these things. Like, why does Pike, why is his quarters / private kitchen the size of a football stadium? Like, why is this? Like, what? I don't like the new Enterprise. I think their ham-fisted attempts at saying that it's all the same is bullshit. I hate what they did to Kirk.
What is that even about?
I mean, like, let alone like what they did to Spock. Like, I thought what they did to Spock was bad enough, and then they did basically the same thing to Kirk, and it's like, really? Like, the whole point of this is that you're not doing Kirk, and then here we go. Here comes shitty little wannabe Kirk. So I don't know. I don't like Lon Noonien Singh. I don't like the Gorn bullshit. I don't like how they're treating number one. They're treating her as kind of like a also cast member, which she should be like the main cast member.
I agree.
I don't know. I just don't. I like the helmsman. I think she's funny. I don't like Spock, and I don't know if I mentioned that yet, but I really don't like Spock. I don't like what they did with Spock's lady friend on Vulcan and how they like hypersexualized her. I really don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't even gotten to the fact that they like retcons Mbenga being like the chief medical officer for some reason. I don't.
Yeah, it doesn't make the later stuff make any sense.
No sense. And Mbenga was a Vulcan specialist that like was there to help like Spock. Like, yeah, he was on the staff, and you got the impression that like McCoy ran a staff of doctors, right? He was like the chief surgeon among a staff of surgeons,
which
right?
was all
Which is how it should. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And then I mean, this one they're just treating it like it's, you know, there's 7 people on this gigantic ship, and you know, I don't like it. I also don't like Akiva Goldsman, so even if he made the greatest movie ever made, I would still say it's awful.
It seems like he has to have done something good at some point, right?
Yeah, he won an Oscar for something.
Yeah, you know me and my disdain for awards, though. I'm not really.
I don't know.
He must have. I don't know. He must have done something cool. I just
Mission
can't remember.
Impossible or something. It was something stupid.
And check out actors like Who Killed Dan. So Dan is having.
He's having a day. He's having a day. We're all having a day. Drink some Tranya and be happy.
My kid's even having a day. He was. Hector knows this story. I actually told Walker. I sent it to him in a text. Everybody's on his side. But he did this. They did it. You'll love this, being an instructor at Starfleet Academy High School.
Yes.
In his English class, they're doing Catcher in the Rye, which he actually loves, like unlike every other teenager ever. He thinks it's a great book. But they did this pop quiz that had some vocabulary and some stuff, and then there was a small essay portion, right, a paragraph on something. And he felt the need to say that Holden is just a fucked up teenager.
I mean, and he is,
and he got a point or a half a point off, something minuscule for that. And we're just trading text, so I haven't seen like what it is, but I'm like, dude, like that's nothing.
Just
like,
1 point. Okay.
Yeah, it's like don't get excited. And he's like, well, I'm really upset that she didn't see that I was using the fucked up teenager's language to explain a fucked up teenager. And I'm like, dude, like just think about. I tell him all the time, consider your audience, right?
Yeah.
She's a high school English teacher who has to read 33 of these things. There's all she saw was fucked up, and you're like, -1. Nice try, Walker. We can't have that. That's literally the level she looked at that.
The -1 is the part that sticks out to me. I mean, that's the take that win, buddy.
That's what I mean. It's like a point for that. Okay.
I mean,
in my day, that's a parent-teacher conference.
I can hear you now, Dan.
Woohoo!
Can you hear me?
He fixed it.
All right. Yeah. I mean, you know, at certain points, depending on the language, that's something you have to kick that upstairs. So he should take the win. That's my advice as a instructor at Starfleet Academy.
I won't tell him that part.
Yes.
And hopefully no one but Rick is reading this. You know, every time I hear Tranya, I always think Rick Austin dubbed that voice for Baylock on a MTV thing.
Nice.
He did. I think he even told that story. Didn't he tell that story when he was on? We didn't talk at all about the MTV Star Trek thing. They did Baylock for like the movie awards or something. I don't remember it exactly, but he just kept going, that dumb laugh, you know?
I love it.
As a placeholder audio, and nobody could do it better. So he gets to be Baylock forever.
That's
nice
awesome.
Job, Rick.
So, guys, you said you didn't watch Mandalorian. Did you rewatch any Price?
Yeah, I watched it. I didn't rewatch it.
Yeah, you didn't rewatch.
I haven't rewatched it, but we watched all of it. Yeah,
okay,
we loved it. Yeah,
I just tried to rewatch it. For some reason, it will not work on my computer. I think related to the audio problems that I was just experiencing. But I watched it on my phone and just sort of like on the side while I was doing.
Yeah,
you know, I was recalibrating the tachyon things. And I just was struck by how great it was, just even as an audio play and just like on the side as a little peripheral thing,
Yeah.
so much better than any Star Trek
Yeah.
I've seen for years.
Yeah.
It's
And this is something I brought this up a couple weeks ago because this is something that I don't really know how to articulate, why the Star Wars shows are succeeding so well and the Star Trek shows are failing almost without exception. I mean, you know, we all have competing ideas on season 3 of Picard. Best case scenario, they have one good season out of, let's see, Discovery's on season 5, Picard's on season 3, Strange New Worlds on season 2. Like, you know, maybe 1 or 2 seasons worth of good episodes compared to what do we got? We got Mandalorian, we got Boba Fett, we got Andor, we've got the Obi-Wan show. I feel like there was some other show,
and they're all tied in very well,
right? And they're all good. Like everybody kind of hated on the Obi-Wan show, but it wasn't bad. It was just, you know,
I still haven't watched it.
You know, so this is something that I want to bring up because hopefully you guys in the chat room can help me articulate this. Why are they so different? Like, why are they so different in terms of production, reception? I mean, obviously they're different franchises. There's different, obviously, but like just in terms of like they're doing effectively the exact same thing, right? They're trying to build a new audience by mining the old stuff, right? They're doing effectively the same thing, specifically with the Mandalorian stuff and the Obi-Wan stuff. But like, why is it succeeding so well versus failing so bad?
Captain Fun.
I think it's as simple as the Star Trek folks don't know what they're doing. I get a little ding, right? Because I say stuff when I'm truly honestly full of curiosity and trying to figure something out or make something that I don't understand. I always think, what's the why? Like, why are we doing this? Why are we changing? Why? What's the why? And it was pointed out to me that in my enthusiasm, sometimes that comes across as very aggressive because why isn't it's a challenging question to ask. And I don't get that, but I understand where that might come from. So I don't mean that like the guys running Star Trek are dipshits, but they don't understand why they're doing it. That dumb thing I always say about Star Trek, they know what the Star Wars guys know what Star Wars is, and then they just do some more of that. Some director will come in and go, I'm the kung fu guy, and all of a sudden Lateef and Brendan are doing all the stunts and Pablo gets a day off, right? Or Robert Rodriguez comes in and all of a sudden there's all these like motorcycles in there because he just wants to do that. But Star Wars is such an elastic thing that you can, right? Star Trek, on the other hand, is this rigid paramilitary thing that's been on for 60 years where guys like us like no crazy shit backwards and forwards. And the people who are producing the new stuff are not respecting that in any sense whatsoever. Right? It's like all this dumb stuff just shows up and we all immediately go, why is there a giant tribble there? Why is there a Gorn skeleton there? What's the why? And they never tell us, right? It's like, what are they thinking? What do they think these shows are about? You literally cannot answer that. What was the theme of Picard? Right? There's no theme to Picard.
You could, not to the series, no. There's a couple of things I think that are part of it. The biggest thing I thought for sure you were going to say, Larry, because you always say, like, how about give us some fucking Star Trek, right?
Right. Well,
like, where's the Star Trek? Whereas Mandalorian is the most Star Wars thing ever. It's the best Star Wars thing since George Lucas left involvement with Star Wars, without a doubt, and maybe even better than the prequels in a lot of ways, right?
I think you're absolutely right. It made me think of a metaphor though, that like when I was a kid, they had this like corn syrup flavoring that you're just supposed to put in. It was like liquid Kool-Aid. It was called Zarex. And my sister and I used to just drink out of the bottle. It's fucking concentrate, right? It was probably like 300% sugar. But and you couldn't drink a whole glass because it's just corn syrup and sugar. But I feel like that's what the Mandalorian is that's liquid concentrate Star Wars. And Star Trek is the other way, that they've diluted.
It's
They've
diluted.
diluted the Star Trek into nothing.
Totally,
it's just kind of like blue water now, right?
To a whole generation, Filoni is Roddenberry. Lucas isn't Roddenberry. A whole generation loves the prequels and loves the Clone Wars. I also would wager that this is the thing that George Lucas like watches and likes. Like of any Star Wars thing since he left, like I could see him being like liking this because it just gets all of his storytelling desires, right? Like,
and it's very similar to that underground show he was trying to get on the air too.
I don't know about that one.
I do like Filoni is Roddenberry. Lucas isn't Roddenberry, but that's the cool thing that like Star Trek doesn't really have a Lucas, Roddenberry, or Filoni now. It used to, like Brandon Braga, Michael Piller, all those guys, the TNG guys are legend, but they all went to like For All Mankind.
Well, and so this is a great point. Or the Orville, like Brandon Braga took all his people to the Orville, right? And so like this is a really good point that you're bringing up, where when the Orville came out immediately with Discovery, they were basically direct competitors there for a couple years, and people would say Discovery is not Star Trek. Orville is way more Star Trek. And as proof, look at all the Star Trek people working on it. And one of the pushbacks was those people had their time. It's in time for a new Star Trek. Meanwhile, here we are. I mean, Dave Filoni, if anyone doesn't know like the story, he's basically George Lucas's protege. And like George Lucas and him would literally like sit on the back porch drinking mint juleps, talking about how the Force works. Right. And why some Jedis are stronger than other Jedis with the Force. Like literally, like Dave Filoni is basically a walking Star Wars encyclopedia. And now he is in control and he has Favreau with the storytelling, with the actual production side of things. He's making the stories. He was involved with Clone Wars, Rebels. I would say Rebels is the best Star Wars since Empire. I think it's way better than anything else. So like, Star Trek, if we're looking at kind of the divergence here, Star Wars embraced their kind of proteges, and they embraced the Filonis and all of that. They're embracing the aesthetic. They're embracing the rules of the world, right? Yes, they're going off on these weird little side tangents, but it's all one giant story, right? Versus Star Trek, which explicitly got rid of the rules, the aesthetic, the people, all of the different kinds of things that tell you visually you're watching Star Trek, thematically that you're watching Star Trek, whereas Star Wars kind of doubled down, right? Would you guys?
Yeah, I think absolutely. But even storytelling wise and pacing wise, Mandalorian's telling this long epic story that they set up years ago now. It's paying off with like big changes to the canon. I was thinking about how if you were a kid and you watched Star Wars, it was always like you want to be a Jedi. The Jedis are the good guys. There's the Padawans. I want to be a Padawan and become a Jedi. Now, if I were a kid, I'm like, F that. I'm a Mandalorian, dude. That's what I want to do. And the first episode I did, like I said, I sort of re-listened to it. And it ends towards the end of the episode. He's just like, Mando says to Grogu, "Hey kid, you ready to go on an adventure?" And it's like that's the theme of the whole season. That's
it right there.
It feels so great, and it's absolutely, hey kid, it is a kid's show, but it's like for the kid in all of us, and they're actually pulling that off and not really screwing the pooch. Like tonally, Picard, I don't know, just because of those few F-bombs and a little bit of stuff, like you probably never would show that to a kid or want to. You might say, oh, no.
No, I mean, there's seasons of Discovery that you literally can't show children. Like, I mean, no, I think you brought a good point there. There's a couple good points there. One, they're making it for children, right? And Star Wars fans, as we all know, are children. So they know their audience, right? That's not an insult, Star Wars fans. I'm just saying you're immature little man children. But that's good because Star Wars is directed at you, so they know their audience, right? Star Trek, the people making Star Trek today don't know their audience. it was a show that seems, in retrospect, produced without an audience, in search of an audience that doesn't exist. I was wondering if you could talk to kind of any of these points as well.
Well, I love Rick's thing that when you were saying that, everybody wanted to be who they want to be. I'm always like stuck on people want to be stormtroopers, and like, you guys realize those are the space
that's
Nazis,
why
right?
that's wild to me.
Except like
Rick and fun to have a whole. It's like it's easy to get screen accurate stormtrooper, I think, and you can get a whole group of them pretty easily, more easily than you can.
Well, now, yeah, sure,
yeah.
But when Rick and I were doing our thing, man, we were like, yes, bounty hunters are the way to go. I didn't really need to be a Mandalorian specifically, because even really at that point that Rick's talking about, he was just Clint Eastwood in space. I didn't even really know. I don't even know when he was called a Mandalorian. But I loved Boba Fett because he's the guy giving Darth Vader shit. Like,
who's the other bounty hunter? Larry wanted to be Bosk.
Yeah, Bosk is great. He had the cool Wintech spacesuit. That's why
he's kind of Gorn. He's kind of Gorn descendant or Gorn.
Sure, yeah.
Very Gornish. Yeah.
But there's IG-88 is there as well. Zengar and Suckass or whatever his name is, Zuckass.
So let's talk about those robots and stuff too in Mandalorian, because like, is it me or is
can I just give John props? That whole rant he went on, like, I have nothing to add to it because it was perfect. I agree 100% with everything he said.
It's almost like on the nose to the nth degree, right?
Well,
like,
I was just sitting there. Why can't the Ready Room be like this instead of the fucking off the strip blowjobs of Las Vegas those guys are doing? Why don't you have a fucking real serious conversation about this shit? I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway. Just one quick point before we talk about robots. One quick point, and you mentioned this just a second ago. Star Wars is a Western. It's an adventure. It's a fairy tale, right? And they're not trying to make it something it's not, even though sometimes like Andor is very different in terms of tone, in terms of setting, right? Mandalorian can be very different. Mandalorian still has that sort of go on adventure fairy tale, sort of like I'm a knight errant sort of feel, which is why I think it's probably the most Star Wars. But again, it knows what it is. It's a Western. It's a fairy tale. Boba Fett is the man with no name riding into town. Mandalorian. So even if you add these layers of like, okay, here's all the Mandalorian mythology that we're now going to talk about for 8 episodes, whatever. I don't know anything about that. I don't read comic books. I didn't watch the cartoon. Totally. I can still follow along and be like, okay, that's the queen. That's the queen. She's on her throne and she lost her kingdom. Done. She found a group of knights. Done. Like, I understand these archetypes.
Is that character Bo-Katan? Is she previous to did she exist previous to this?
She's in the Clone Wars and Rebels. Yeah. So does. And ironically enough, they kind of made her look like Katie Sackhoff, and Katie Sackhoff did the voice, and then they got Katie Sackhoff to play Bo-Katan. So it's pretty fun.
That was the happiest of accidents, but now they're doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
When they cast the guy for Thrawn, we're like, yeah, if we show up in live action, you're our guy, man.
Yeah.
And that's happening. It's like kind of not even nobody's really going, ooh, is that going to happen? Because it's so obvious, right?
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
But yeah, Katie Sackhoff, everybody's all like, oh, the timeline doesn't really match up because Bo-Katan should be this way. I was like, hey, fanboy, shut the fuck up.
Who cares?
That's Katie Sackhoff.
Did you see she what was that interview like last week or whatever? She's like, yeah, 80% of the fans love me. 15% of the fans hate me. And then there's the 2% of fans that just want me to sit on their face. And I was like, yeah.
She said that?
That's wow. Oh yeah, she's real bitter. Yeah, she's a real sarcastic person when she gets into interviews. Apparently she's kind of a bitch. But I don't know. I would love to find out, Katie. I'd love to just go hang out.
That's why people get cast, right?
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, who cares? Who cares? She's an actor. I don't care what kind of person you're like. I don't.
that right there is why I'm so sad we never get to see Cara Dune again, because
Yeah. No
that
kidding.
woman was a walk-in special effect and was
Yeah, no
perfect.
kidding.
And like, okay, so she's a right-wing nut.
I might be the only one that just was annoyed by her and didn't really like her.
Really?
I was just not.
All
I
right.
didn't care at all that she's gone.
First of all, she was like the best American Gladiator back in the day. So I'm like a giant fan of her since before anybody really knew who she was. Like the one bit I know about wrestling is because she's like somebody's daughter. You know, I didn't retain that information, but I know, like, where did this perfect friggin' John Buscema drawing come to life show up from? Oh, your dad's a professional wrestler and your mom.
What was her American
model.
Gladiator's name? What was her gladiator name?
It was like, I don't know. It was like Nitro or
Turbo,
Labia or something.
R2D2.
It was 5 letters. It would be a perfect Wordle solution. I don't know. But she was great. Because she was Cara Dune, right? They give her a big thing, and then like, oh, you have to get by me? No, I win. And that's really fun to watch. Like whether it's Larry Bird sinking 3-pointers or, you know, I don't know, stuff I don't know about. Tiger Woods apparently is a guy who's good in this game, golf. You know, but you watch that and you're like, that's fucking fantastic. I get why everybody's entertained by this. And that's what Disney took away from us. A woman that could take a guy who's wearing 200 pounds of Tupperware because he's supposed to be a robot and just throw him over his shoulder and walk off camera without any wires or CG or
That's
green
cool.
screen.
Okay, I'll give you that.
What the fuck, man? Why are you getting rid of that lady?
And sorry, I got pulled away for a second there, but like Bo-Katan, she existed before Mandalorian,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because
she's a pivotal character in Clone Wars.
I loved her character in this. She was arguably the star of the entire season.
Oh yeah.
Her hero's journey was like she earned it. She's not like Rey, where she comes into the scene and she can do everything right away. She does everything. And this one, she lost the sword. She had to get it back. I don't want to get to the ending, but the final battle, it was great.
The final battle was awesome.
Not what I was expecting at all. And Killer made a cool mythology and a cool new strong female character that just worked because the character was good. You made us like her. You made her go through struggles and earn everything that she got at the very end. So like now she's a top tier Star Wars character. Now I expect her to be like one of the first choices of everybody in the Star Wars video games.
Yeah, no, she was really good character. And I like that they gave depth, and you know, I kind of said this earlier, but like because like Dave Filoni did Clone Wars and Rebels, so like he has already kind of developed a lot of this stuff in the backgrounds. But if you haven't seen Clone Wars and Rebels, it still is a follow. Like you can still follow the story and still get everything out of it, right?
But that's kind of what I meant about Tiger Woods and golf, right? Like when he sinks an incredible putt, it's fun to watch, but like we didn't have to watch the 25 years of him in practice to get to the point where he takes that shot, right? So these guys belly aching about Katie Sackhoff. I'm like, you guys know that besides Filoni, there's no one that knows that character better. So like if something's off to you, well, that's you. Because the guy who made it up and the person who brought it back to life got together and presented this. So guess what? They're right. You're wrong. Shut up, fanboy.
Yeah, and there's also this really pernicious part of fan culture right now where, well, I didn't like that choice, so therefore I'm right and the writers are wrong. It's like, well, that's not how this works. Like, go write a fan fiction. Like,
I don't even
if
get
that's what if you want to make that character do something else, go write a fan fiction. Go create your own story, right? And you could argue that I'm guilty of this as well because I hated Star Trek Discovery. My issues with Star Trek Discovery were so much deeper, however, that I'm going to claim immunity from this critique.
You don't watch the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, do you?
I've seen it. I don't.
Yeah. You know the Tony Shalhoub character, her dad. He has this.
Sure, yeah.
He has this great scene.
Very calm guy, right?
Yeah, I actually really like that camera a lot. He has a scene where they're out to dinner and they've just gone to see a Broadway show and he's expounding on what it all means and what, like, you know, they notice that the guy who wrote it is a couple tables over, and the wife is just done. She's like, you don't know what you're fucking talking about, and she just stands up and goes over. oh my God, I'm the biggest fan. We just came from your play. It was great. Could you please come here? And she kind of like picks him up and he like goes over. It's really great. The like early 60s stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, what am I doing here? And she's like, no, my husband has a big theory. And he's like, yeah, it's the man's inhumanity man or whatever. It doesn't matter. And he's like, no, it's just, this is how I dealt. I was a boy and I had a dog and he died. And that's how I dealt with it. And he goes back to his dinner and it like, my wife is watching my face the whole time. She's like, you know, that's what the Star Trek guys think about you. And I'm like, yeah, the new Star Trek guys, maybe.
Yeah.
Because they're doing Star Trek about, oh, wouldn't it be cool if the Guardian at the Edge of Forever was a dude named Carl reading a newspaper? Like, because my grandfather had a newspaper and liked Star Trek, so I'm going to do that. Like, that's the level of shit they're writing, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I guess I just come back to the question. It's like, I don't understand how one can get it so right and one can get it so wrong, right? Because like, you know, the details aside, right? It's like, it doesn't seem like it's a very hard mandate. It's like, go write a new Star Trek, go write a new Star Wars, right?
But that's not the mandate, right? They don't have a mandate. They're like, we got to get a streamer going. Let's call it CBS All Access 75. And they just didn't know what they were doing. They're like, oh, but remember when Paramount launched the UPN network and we used, I don't know, DS9 or Enterprise or whatever for that?
It's Voyager.
Voyager. Star Trek's always our flagship. So there's a new fucking thing we don't know what we're doing, but we know how to do Star Trek. And guess what? They were like, it doesn't matter. We don't know what to do with Star Trek now because those guys will just suck up anything. And we're like, you know, yeah, probably if it was called Star Trek. I mean, I have this, it pains me to hear your critique of Strange New Worlds because that's me with Picard 3. Like everybody would be like, but this happened and this happened. Right. I'm like, yeah, that all sounds cool like that, but you know, it kind of sucked.
Right.
And so then I have to hear that from Strange New Worlds. And you're like, that happened. And I'm like, yeah, it was cool, but it kind of sucked. And like, well, he's right. It's just I like it with Anson Mount, and I kind of hated it with.
I love Anson Mount. Anson Mount's
old
great.
People, that's all.
I like the helmsman. I like some of the minor characters, but
I also think that there's a big budgetary difference between the two because I mean you see it on the screen. They're doing a ship corridor scene after ship corridor scene in Star Trek. And you go to Star Wars, they're on crazy planets, and it's not just they're going to toss in like, you know, Bosk in the background. They're designing whole new characters, creatures. There's giant creature effects in almost every episode that are, you know, theatrical quality at the very least. So
they really are.
It just blows me away every time I go. Like it didn't even have to be as good as it is special effects wise.
No.
Whereas Star Trek, they're just like, we can't afford an alien planet to put them on for this season of Picard. Sorry, like we just can't do an outdoor shot. Really, we're gonna have Raffi in a dimly lit bar.
We can't do an outdoor shot.
Like they just don't have the money to pull it off.
That was
and make it look good.
That was my big problem with Picard 3, season 3 was a lot of that Raffi stuff. You could literally tell it's like, okay, here's an insert shot against the back of some wall of another set. And we're going to shoot in this 15 feet here. And we can only move this far. It starts to get distracting when that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked cheap. The bar scenes and stuff with Raffi and Worf like felt like next generation. Just I don't know how to even describe it. Just
there's a I know exactly what you're talking about. There's a two-parter, season 7 two-parter called The Gambit, where it's Picard, Picard, Worf, Beverly Crusher, Riker. They all have to go into like this seedy little bar, and it's a higher production just because it's 30 years later, but it's almost very similar. It's like, dude, you're doing the exact same thing you were doing in 1991.
It feels like a closed set thing, like a standard set. They dressed it up to be a sci-fi bar, and that's it, and whatever. Where Star Wars, they are taking you to all new places and showing us whole new vistas and scenarios.
Rick's got a good thing going in there about Andor was all outside. It wasn't that they're all filming in the side of, you know, Ireland or something. But I love. He's totally right about Star Trek too. That the Paramount had the movies and CBS had the TV. That no one had
I think that's a big part of it.
eye on the big picture because there was no big picture, right?
Right.
It was. This happened to Blimpies, the sub place. Do you guys know that?
I
When
love
they
Blimpie.
started, yeah. But in the beginning, the two guys that started it, the childhood friends, one guy was the big picture idea guy, and the other guy was implementation and making it happen. And so the idea guy started, as they started getting successful, the idea guy was like, we got to do this. And the nuts and bolts guy was like, that this is how it has to happen. And so they split. But it was great because they didn't split the company. They just were like, you can have all the ones in New York State, including the city, and do your nonsense. And I'll expand out into the country. And I'll do my nonsense. And it was great because it was like the episode of, The Enemy Within, because it worked for a while, but then they started to putter out without the other guy, and I really think that's what's going on with Star Trek is that you have to have the movies and TVs and the action figures and the models and the online game and the LARP and stuff all facing the same way. And that's what Star Wars does.
Yes.
All the books are canon now. Every single comic book is canon now. This is Star Wars. And Star Trek's just kind of like, I don't know what Klingons look like.
Don't get me started on the lack of merchandise. Don't get me started again on the lack of merchandise.
But I just mean it's all in the present day. It's all the thing. It like
exactly,
and then they make a TV show, and then it becomes action figures and ancillary items, and then it's a pinball machine, and then that Star Wars has got all that down. And it's because it's not just, you can't just say it's because of Lucasfilm or Disney. It's because the dudes who started those companies understood that that's how you grow it. And the people who it's been going for so long that the people they hire care just as much about the original guys. And that's not going on with Star Trek. It just isn't.
No.
So,
and
maybe
I mean, I don't know.
In the toothpaste, right? This one's great.
I mean,
it does the job. What are you gonna
Star Trek toys were always lame. Star Trek toys were always lame. The only cool ones were the ones that was like a replica type thing. So like you could have like a phaser that looked really like the one on TV.
Oh yeah.
Star Wars stuff. Like if I watched Picard and I watched Mandalorian, like there's no question which toys you're going to want to play with. I'm sorry, Price. Yeah, like maybe that. But there's like 100 cool things, not to mention all the new Mando variations, all the different colors.
But that's the thing, right? Like the toys are in Star Wars' DNA. That was a thing, Lucas kept that for himself because he understood that's part of the funnel. And Star Trek was set up to be, a thinking man's Western with space guns.
Right.
And so it's not really set up to have like action figures. And I mean, that we have the stuff we have for Star Trek is kind of amazing. But Star Wars,
but once the fan culture took over and they wanted the merchandising, they needed to flip it around. They needed to flip around and say, okay, well, the fans want stuff to buy. Let's give them stuff to buy. Like I bring this out because this was the Christmas, the big seller this Christmas. Note what isn't on this package. What is not on this package?
Anything to do with modern Star Trek?
Anything after 1969.
Right.
Like, even they know that nothing they're doing is appealing to the masses. Even they know this. So, like, I don't know how to resolve that in my head other than, are they really this stupid? Like, meanwhile, Eagle Moss just went out of business and people are making tons of money selling these new Eagle Moss ships. Like, this is a Star Trek Online ship. In what world should anyone own this? And yet here it is. Like I just don't understand how to circle the square where it's like, what is going on here?
Well, don't you think that they have recognized all this stuff and like what we saw in Strange New Worlds and in Picard season 3 represents all that course correction? Like they're like,
oh, absolutely.
We got all the anti-Star Trek shit out of our system. Patrick Stewart is too old to make any more stupid demands, and nobody's putting him in charge of plot points.
I'm sorry I laughed at that, but
I believe he is like, if you ever saw his appearance in Extras with Ricky Gervais,
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
where he's just a complete moron. I really believe like that. It was such a believable
Some good
representation of what
Yeah.
actors can be like, especially the ones that have all that gravitas and stuff. There could be nothing going on inside there. He certainly was not a fan of Star Trek, put it that way.
Well, he wanted to make a very specific dramatic choices. And it's like well, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I can't blame him. You can't blame him.
Yeah.
Like if they're gonna say do what you want, he's like, shit, I want to do
Right.
it and stretch some acting chops. I don't want to wear a uniform anymore. I did that for 20 years. I get it.
Right. I just I don't know. I don't know. The easy answer is they're all stupid. Star Wars people.
I think there's way too much turnover in the property of, you know,
That
like
could be it too.
I think it's like 16 banks buying your mortgage in 20 years.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is, because Lucasfilm had control over the properties. And then they sold it to Disney. Now Disney has control of the properties. That's just two people in, what is it?
And it's not
years?
they're not even changing
Entity.
people, because it's Lucas's protege,
right,
Kathleen Kennedy, and
yeah.
Lucas's other protege, Dave Filoni, who are
Yeah.
taking it over. So it's not even like it's a change of, you know, name, but it's still the same continuity, right? I think that's a really good point.
Thanks. Rick too. When the voice goes wobbly, it's over for these Shakespeare guys.
Yeah,
it's so true, especially with a guy who's built his entire career on, I am the voice of fucking gravitas.
Totally.
But then when it sounds like, you know, I'm the voice of gravitas. It used to be. It was great. You know, sit down. Just watch TV now.
But
count your money.
But like with Star Trek, right? Would it have been better if they had just let Brandon Braga run it? Like, would that have been the solution? I don't think so. I mean, we would have just got more. I mean, the Orville is good. I like the Orville. It's a lot better than it should be, right? And for the last season of the Orville, the second season of the Orville, was that third season? Whatever. They actually had like these amazing, like feature-length size episodes that were huge sci-fi like episodes, right? Is that what Star Trek should have been in the 2017 plus era?
You know, the fanboy question of like, wouldn't it be better if this happened is unsolvable. But in the world, it's not the way the Star Trek guys act now in our universe is that they're Doctor Strange and they've seen the 14,506 versions of where we've had this conflict, and Star Trek has just sucked every time, but only this one version where Alex Kurtzman is in control is the one where we all have a good time. And it's like, no, there's a version of Star Trek that is just fine, that like was received as Orville. Like Star Trek came back after the movies with a new cast, and it lasted 3 years, and that was cool. But they act like their way is the only way, and it's not Star Trek.
And let's not forget, I mean, they blew the bank on Discovery season 1.
Yeah, man.
Like they were doing $10 million episodes on Discovery season 1. So it's cheap now because they blew their bank in the first couple years and it got zero return.
Nobody cared.
Like nobody cared. In fact, it was negative return because it caused such online controversies that they actually like lost all this like cred. So it's like, in a world where, okay, we're gonna make new Star Trek, right? Okay, what's his face is out. The original showrunner's out. We got Alex Kurtzman on board. Alex, we really need you to bring in Ronald D. Moore and Brandon Braga. Bring them on as consultants, right? Does that, where does that multiverse head us into? I guess.
Well, knowing what we know now, he would never do that, right?
Well, right, yeah. As opposed to, hey, I offered my services to Alex Kurtzman. He told me to fuck off, so I went and created the Orville.
Right.
I mean, like here's
the thing. Does anybody besides you and me remember the first season of Discovery cost $150 million and Netflix paid for it?
Oh, I remember.
I'm saying you and me remember that because we were like that's a what the fuck for the ages, and everybody else seems to kind of like, oh yeah, I guess, yeah. John
There's
and
a
Larry
reason
are
it's
pretty
not
straight
on
shooters.
Netflix.
And then season 2, they went, So
Yeah.
isn't that kind of a red flag? No, but this is the only universe where Star Trek works. All those guys should have been fired like instantly.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. But I do appreciate, I mean, look, I'm not the hugest Star Wars fan in the world. I don't get caught up in the minutia like I would Star Trek or even a couple other franchises. But I really appreciate the fact that not every episode is perfect. Certainly not. Not every series is perfect. Certainly not. But I really appreciate the fact that they're creating Star Wars shows, right? It's like World War II movies, right? I've been talking about World War II a lot at Starfleet Academy High School, and I'm trying to like go over like World War II became a genre of movie. Like everyone talks today about how, oh, comic book movies is just a genre, right? And there's subgenres. There's, there's a heist movie, there's a buddy cop movie, there's a romance movie, right? The same exact thing happened with World War II movies. There are so many World War II movies. They're still making World War II movies. There are romance movies, there's action movies, there's comedies, there's, I said comedies, and one of the kids was like, how can you make a funny war movie? I'm like,
oh my
here,
God.
let's find out. Let's let's watch.
Did you instantly watch Petticoat Junction and
right, or
Kelly's
Heroes?
Like, Hogan's Heroes.
Come
McHale's
on,
Navy.
Right? McHale's Navy, perfect. Yeah.
Anyway.
But like,
teenagers.
I do appreciate the fact that Star Wars has become its own genre. It's okay. We're gonna tell this type of story in Star Wars. You're not gonna make a World War II movie that looks and feels like Tron. You're not going to make a World War II movie that looks and feels like Napoleonic era.
You could, though, right?
No, it has to look like World War II. They have to be wearing World War II uniforms. They have to
what
be
are you
wearing
talking about?
The aesthetic of World War II.
No, Rogue One is a World War II movie.
But no, that's not what I'm talking. I'm not talking about like metaphorically similar. I'm just saying, like, if you're making a movie that's literally about World War II, it has to have World War II things in it. They are making Star Wars shows, so they have to have Star Wars things in it.
I got you.
You see what I mean?
I do. I was
all
just.
Right. I
love when you get fired up, man.
It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to me. I don't understand.
But you're usually pretty measured, like academic, got your little
right
presentation.
I really dislike this. I really.
It's too bad Dan isn't here because if I never see that fucking thing again, I'll be fine. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
This
his
AI
name and he shall appear.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm having my dog.
That's all right, man.
Doing good today, and so
that's all right.
I'm getting updates from the vet as we come.
Everything all right?
Poor Larry. Yeah, no, it's not all right.
I'm sorry.
Something's going on with that guy.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm sorry. What did I?
Wait, poor Larry.
Oh, sorry. Larry's my dog. You didn't know that, Larry. I don't know.
Poor Larry.
Hey, fucking something's going on with that guy. And we're like, wait, what?
Yeah, no, poor Larry the dog.
Oh, that's cool. I'm sorry though. There's already. It's cool when there's a dog named Larry, but there's a dog whose middle name is Larry that was named after me. So that was pretty cool.
That's nice.
Well, Wade West from the old Thunderdome days.
Oh yeah.
What was his girlfriend's name? Iris.
Yeah.
Their dog Rufus. Their dog Rufus's middle name is Larry Young.
That's funny.
Rufus Larry Young West.
Yeah, it's a good name.
Not like this Larry, who's sorry, man.
Larry. Hope he gets
on their
better.
way out is never good.
Mine is named after Larry Fine. Who?
Dr. Fine.
I was thinking Larry is one of those names. It's one of those few people who it's a one-word name for somebody, right? Like Cher or Liza or something.
Good name.
Larry. I always think of Larry.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a comedy word, comedy name.
I like it.
Not in my house, but the rest of the world.
Well, guys, we've got a couple of weeks before there's any new Star Trek to even look at, right? So we're gonna keep going on Mandalorian, or you got any thoughts or any other stuff that we should pivot into?
Well, Thursday is Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Oh,
and I got a giant feeling at least half the team is going.
I read a very critical review that was basically like, if you're squeamish, don't watch this. So I think Larry
Well,
Young
Yeah,
is onto
squeamish.
something.
In what way? Like,
I don't want to ruin it. I don't. It was kind of a spoiler-ish review. I don't want to give it out, but it was like, yeah, it's gonna get a little gory.
oh well, that's all right.
I
That's
know
fine.
I know it doesn't matter. I'm just telling the audience.
Oh,
You know.
Well, I'm going to make a recommendation of something that just dropped today on YouTube. If you have not checked out Captain Disillusion, you really need to get into Captain Disillusion. He's a dude who he debunks those like YouTube videos, viral YouTube videos. That's sort of how he started. But he himself does such amazing special effects and production work and does a lot of work in Blender. He was like a keynote speaker at BlenderCon. And it's like Bill Nye the Science Guy for visual effects. So he'll really break down the
I see how it works. Yeah.
but with amazing graphics and amazing explanations of all that stuff. It's fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. He's a total inspiration to me. And one of the few people that I was just looking at what I spend my entertainment dollar on. And I have been noticing a decided shift away from corporate media, and I'm spending more and more money on my Patreon account. Do you guys support any patrons? Are you Patreon users?
I'm too old for that digital nonsense.
Oh man, there's some great.
No, of course. I just no, I don't want to learn some new thing to get in on.
It's so fun though. There's people out there though that are doing any like niche little thing. There's guys doing weirdo 3D animation, creating tutorials in Blender and stuff, and it's like I could toss them $2 or $3 a month. And if these guys get to make a living out of it and produce these tutorials and produce this content that's like is the most interesting, fun, gripping content that I view. So I'm like, bring it on. Enough. I really love it.
Yeah, I have no problem paying for stuff that I like.
Yeah.
Hey, there was a great thing. Rick says they torture animals. So yeah, that's a bit of the thing about how Rocket came to be and his three buddies. They blew that in the trailer about somebody's named Flower and somebody's named, I don't know. They're all three cute friends of his who we've never heard anything about before, and it's clearly a flashback because Rocket is young. So they're like, oh, those three are all dead. So they rip them up. All right, well, they're not real animals.
It was a shock to me that Guardians of the Galaxy. I was shocked when Guardians of the Galaxy was announced at all. I'm like, nobody knows about Guardians of the Galaxy. The first movie, I mean. And then even more shocked that it was that newer team and not, you remember the old team?
Larry? Oh, yeah, sure. Charlie 27.
Charlie 27 and Crystal, whatever. And I guess they've brought those characters into the movies and stuff, but it was really out of left field. And I feel like if it wasn't for the actors involved and James Gunn.
Yeah, like, it's James Gunn.
That was everything, right?
Yeah. It's James Gunn looked at it and went, I want to tell some wacky story. And no one cares about these characters. So he just took all the stuff off the Marvel shelf and put it in the bowl and mixed it up and threw in some swear words. And ooh, look, there's some boobies. Hey, I knew that movie was going to be a fucking smash hit when I saw the movie poster. And there's Groot. Like, you don't really know what's going on. Like, even me, I knew what the team was, but I'm like, and I knew Groot. I'm like, I guess that's supposed to be Star-Lord. It doesn't look anything like Star-Lord. And so I looked down, and all it says is whatever the opening day was. It was like August 8th, 2013. You're welcome. That's all they said. And I'm like, everybody, I actually said that I saw it in a movie theater, and somebody was walking by, and I'm like, this is the Babe Ruth of movie posters. Because they're Marvel is so sure. They're like, I know you have questions, but just go see the fucking movie because here it is. We're not.
I enjoyed the first one.
I fucking love that. It's my favorite movie poster ever.
I enjoyed the first movie a lot, just because it was so wacky and out of left field, and had oh fuck, what is the dude's name with the hammer? Ronan the Accuser,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm like Ronan the Accuser is one of my all-time favorite characters that nobody has ever heard of, and I love that they brought in the most obscure, weird characters and made it into a blockbuster like that. I thought that was pretty amazing.
I agree. But that's why everybody goes, "Oh, this is the thing that's going to kill Marvel." Like, no, stop saying that. Like, okay, Phase 4 wasn't that great. Killing Marvel, you just sound like a moron. They're just going to take a thing where, like, oh, they're just Disney will just go, "Hey, Flaming Carrot is ours now," and he's Captain America who runs the Green Lantern Corps, and then everybody goes sees the movie. It does $3 billion opening weekend, and it's like that's where we're headed. But the bad news is it's going to be written by an AI, and we're all going to be dead.
We'll see about that.
Yeah,
See
I
about
really
that.
loved Captain Fun put in that contract negotiations for the Writers Guild, the AI clause in there where they're like, "Hey, please don't. You're not going to train any AIs off of our stuff, and you're not going to let any AIs write any stuff for you, right?" And the management's like, "No, we're not going to say any of that stuff. We're not saying any of those things that you just said. We will maybe talk about it in the future if you're lucky." Right?
No, see, but they didn't say that. That's how the writers pitched it. That was the one bit I did understand. They're like, "Look, this is a volatile technology thing that changes by the minute. Like, why are you going to lock us into something in 2023 for the next 15 years until you go on strike again, where it's not beneficial for anybody?" But that's just the contract.
I think because we're at the inflection point where if they sign that now, then somebody's going to start. They're just going to start, like, writers' jobs are going to start going away because they're going to replace them with AI. I mean,
I think we need to destroy all of these Chat GPT nonsense. Just destroy them. Destroy them before it's too late.
You know, there's a million producers out there who are on Chat GPT going,
of course,
just like producing spec screenplays based on.
It's nonsense. It's nonsense. We need to destroy it before it's too late. This will get out of hand. We'll be lucky to live through it.
I think it's just,
agreed.
I think it's just increasing the signal to noise ratio to the point where, or the noise to signal ratio, I should say, so much that the studios are probably going to start getting flooded with scripts the way those online sci-fi anthologies were getting flooded with AI generated sci-fi stories. You know what I mean? And so
I do.
So, but what I think that means, though, is that there's going to be a sameness, and that, like, to overcome that, we're going to have to start. People are going to have to start, like, genre defying, stop so much of the same old, and start.
I think the next step is going to be that regular people aren't going to be able to believe anything they read or see, but people that have some training, like, I just read a thing today that was like, "Oh, here's this, like, frightening horror story about AI." And I'm like, oh my God, I kind of scroll down. It's really long. And so I just sort of hit the middle of the paragraphs. Are they still talking about this nonsense? And just even skimming it, I go, hey, the big reveal of this is going to be like, "Ha, fooled you. All of this was from AI. And sure enough, I get to the end and I'm like, well, I can still tell what some writing that has no soul. But, like, you know, I'm pretty sure, like, my dad, if he was still alive, would just be like, well, "What? No, the Red Sox didn't win the pennant that year." It must be true.
People keep going, "It's not human. It's not as good as human. It's not." What I say is that humans are not as sophisticated as you think, and that in reality, most of our consciousness is a large language model. I mean, reality is literally modeled in language in our mind. That's the only way we have to describe it. And most people, because they don't write enough, couldn't even write as well as one of these generative AI.
Well, that's a good point, because the easiest way to tell if a student has used one of these is if it's quasi. Yeah, if the student who can barely, like, write a paragraph is all of a sudden turning in a 5-page paper, you're like, oh, interesting. and it passes the turn it in check. Interesting. I wonder where you got this. Did you put the question into a little toolbox and all of a sudden it spat out this 5-page essay? Oh, interesting. The problem is it's a terrible precedent. Like, are you going to punish that kid for doing that? Like,
He did a form of research, right? Yeah.
We need to stop. We need to stop with this nonsense.
I think
there should be no more movies. There should be no more anything. We need to teach kids how to write and nothing else.
I was just about to go the other way, John.
I know, and I'm cutting you off.
And I was about to say, like, well, we need to give kids media literacy because that's the one thing that they don't get trained on. Like, they should understand about like how a conversation can be edited out of context, for instance.
That's definitely true.
You know what I mean? Because people will watch that and have no clue about cuts and how that works at all. But if you even have a little bit of knowledge, you can spot it very easily. I just feel like kids need to be trained in not only spotting that stuff, but maybe in making video. That's the next thing, right?
Oh, I mean, deep fakes are going to destroy. I mean, I'm a history teacher. We're fucked. We're fucked.
You mean you can't prove anything actually happened anymore?
Right. I mean, if someone shows you
if
someone shows you a perfectly produced deepfake that looks, era appropriate, you're like, "Oh yeah, that is a picture from the 60s." No one fucking knows.
I got
you.
I got you.
Anyway, all right guys, I got to roll out. I got to play with my new starship and talk about Mandalorian to myself.
I was gonna say, wait, we got a Ben Finney thing happening here. He pulled the ion thing before the red alert went. Oh my god, John did not wait for a red alert.
But what's funny though is Mandalorian is actually rewatchable, and I'm considering actually watching the whole thing because I like it's good, and I didn't soak in all the details.
I'll restart it, and we'll talk about it next week. I watched the Timothy Oliphant one all the time. I love that one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, we'll be back next time. And we'll talk about this stuff and more.
Thanks, guys.
I'm going to take us out of here. It's been great seeing you guys here. We're going to be back next Tuesday. It's going to be 3 p.m. Pacific Earth time. And you know where it's going to be? It's going to be
on the internet. I love that. I love that so much.
So good. All right, guys. See you later. Love you long time.
Yes, have trouble.
Hey, I didn't end the broadcast yet. See you later, guys.